We have some significant NHL trade rumors today with word that Pierre-Luc Dufour and Alex Debrincat both want trades out of their respective places, plus with the latest updates on Flyer trades. Lots of movement going to be happening in Philadelphia this offseason. We have some signings and other news from around the league, including an update on the vacant Rangers head coaching position. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned today, we had some pretty significant trade rumors to take a look at, but first we have a few other details around the league I want to touch on here quickly. First, we have a few signings to start with, including the Chicago Blackhawks re-signing forward Andreas Athanasiou. He gets a 2-year deal at $4.25 million per season. He put up 20 goals and 20 assists last year for 40 points. Get a chance to play a bigger role in Chicago, obviously with the team not being overly deep. It's not expected to be a team that's overly competitive the next couple of years. Depending on what they have else on their roster, I would suspect he might get a chance to play with Connor Bedard. You never know. Might be a fun opportunity for him to remain there and be one of their bigger names. I know guys like him and Max Domi signed in Chicago last year, with the expectation that they'd probably sign short-term deals and get traded at the deadline for a chance to go to the playoffs. But Athanasiou ended up staying put and ends up re-signing. So obviously that worked out well for him. We also have a couple other signings and other teams as well. The New York Rangers have signed forward Anton Bleed. He gets a 2-year, two-way contract. He's mostly been a minor leaguer for the most part, but he does have this two-way contract that gives him a more lucrative opportunity at the AHL level. He gets $775,000 at the NHL level and $350,000 at the American Hockey League level. So that's a more lucrative two-way deal than you typically see in a lot of AHL players. And the Dallas Stars have re-signed defenseman Alex Petrovic. Of course, he's played a fairly significant role on their AHL blue line as well. That's a two-way contract, so he is eligible for recall to the NHL. But Petrovic, for the last quite some time now, has been mostly an AHL level defenseman. This is the same Alex Petrovic the Florida Panthers insisted on protecting in the Vegas Golden Knights expansion draft, and asked the Golden Knights to take Jonathan Marchessault and Riley Smith off their hands so they could do that. That has not worked well for them at all. Of course, we can't really make fun of the Florida Panthers today for that because it's a whole different regime running the team than compared to then, but certainly a move that I'm sure that anybody still at the franchise certainly deeply regrets, especially now that the Golden Knights have run into the Panthers in the Stanley Cup final, and Marchessault and Smith are playing a big role in helping the Golden Knights win so far here. So we'll see Game 3 of the Stanley Cup final goes this evening. The series now shifts to South Florida for the next 2 games. This is a must-win for the Florida Panthers. I mean, coming back from 2-0 is not something you see very often in the Stanley Cup final. It's pretty rare. Typically, the winner of the Game 1 of the final wins. I don't know the exact percentage, but it's a very high percentage of the time. I think it's close to 90%. So that alone is statistically not where you want to be. To be down 2-0 is even worse. But there has been a couple of rare situations where teams have come back, but being down 3-0 in the final is almost unheard of. It's like if they can't win tonight, the Panthers are pretty much doomed, I would say. But it ain't over until it's over. We'll see how things go tonight. If they can break through and get some more better shots on Adin Hill, and certainly give a harder time than the Vegas defense, who's been doing a pretty good job so far of keeping them out from getting too many prime opportunities. We'll see where things go tonight. We also got word today that the former NHL COO, John Collins, has now become a member of the New York Islanders. He's also invested with the team, so he's obviously bought a minority stake, but he's also going to become the president of business operations. I know I see a lot of people asking, what does this mean for Lou Lamoriello? Well, it means nothing because he's running the business side. Lou runs the hockey side, so Lou is president and GM of the hockey operations. So Collins will run the business operations. He's got a wealth of experience, so he should be really good for the Islanders, good asset in that regard from a business perspective. I would suspect, if anything, it might mean that you'll see even less of Scott Malkin, the majority owner of the Islanders. He could probably take an even more of a silent, lesser-known role with the appointment here of Collins to become the president of business ops. So we'll see, but either way, it's nothing really significant on the hockey side. If anything, it'll help them on the business side. He's like I said, a welcome addition to the franchise. And when it comes to the New York Rangers, of course, their state rival here, Elliot Friedman believes that John Hynes is now the front runner to become the next head coach of the New York Rangers. Of course, he was recently let go from his post in Nashville once Barry Trotz made the decision to let the Hynes go and appoint Andrew Brunette to be the new head coach of the Predators. For the longest time, it was believed to be Peter Laviolette that was in the front runner spot. Then Hynes kind of jumped into the mix for a long time here making decisions, so I'm not really sure they're completely in love with either candidate, but at this point, I'm not sure, unless there's a surprise candidate nobody knows about, that it's going to be anybody different. We'll see if they finally make a decision here over the next few days. Now, as I mentioned, we have some pretty significant trade talk to address here today in the video. Before we get into Debrincat and PLD, I want to talk about the Philadelphia Flyers a little bit further. They're going to be a very busy team. We've seen newly appointed GM Danny Briere kick off trade season with a huge 3-team trade the other day involving shipping out Ivan Provorov, longtime defenseman, former high first-round pick. Of course, was a longtime member there and the top defenseman on the team for some time. Certainly caught a lot of people by surprise, myself included. I didn't think we'd see a significant trade like that during the Stanley Cup final. Usually it happens later into the month. Once the final is done, we're getting closer to the draft. That's usually when things really start to heat up. But a lot of NHL GMs are saying that there's a lot of talk, a lot of chatter out there. Teams are trying to be aggressive and get ahead of things. So you never know. Maybe we'll get more trades or more things happening a little bit earlier this month. Only time will tell here. But after getting that trade on our way, we got word that Carter Hart was being heavily discussed for potential trade. Right now, there's a lot of chatter and a lot of mentions about teams like the Habs and the Leafs when it comes to Hart. I don't think they're the only teams. Really, I think there's probably a bunch of teams in the mix there. But I've seen some reporters say that they've been told that maybe the rumor mill on Hart should be kind of pump the brakes a little bit. Not to say that he won't be traded. I just don't know. Like, there's some that think that there's not as much going on and things are not as close as some others kind of led everybody to believe. There's definitely conversations taking place after acquiring another goalie. I think they're definitely open to trading. I don't think it's the right package. No doubt about that. But we'll have to see. It's just going to take more time, I think, than a lot of people might anticipate here. But Habs and Leafs getting a ton of press when it comes to this player, but I'm not entirely convinced he's going to end up in either spot. There's going to be lots of interest, and we'll see where that goes. We don't really have any new updates there besides the fact that the Habs and Leafs seem to be getting all the attention. But when it comes to Philly, they're also looking to move Tony DeAngelo. He's got 1 year left on his deal. Of course, things did not work out last year after going to Philly from Carolina. Philly would be like a homecoming for him. Didn't work out. Didn't really gel well with head coach John Tortorella, and they're looking to move on from him. So they're trying to see if they can't find somebody who's got 1 year left on his contract. I kind of wonder how long Tony DeAngelo is going to last in the NHL because he keeps running out of opportunities and kind of just, a combination of his playing style and personality. This seems to be difficult for a lot of other people to really work with here. And Kevin Hayes is another target that's being discussed a lot. There is belief still that the Flyers and the Blue Jackets could once again hook up on another trade, and Hayes likely could be involved. There could be actually other members of the roster that the Blue Jackets might have their eye on too. But I believe right now that Kevin Hayes, that was actually an old rumor that's kind of resurfacing here. We had heard from a number of different sources near the end of the season, regular season that there was a really good chance that Kevin Hayes was going to go to Columbus, that Philadelphia was going to retain some salary that was pretty much agreed to, and they would kind of agree to revisit and obviously, try to execute later. This would have been right around the time that Briere was named interim GM, like back a little while towards the end of the year after Chuck Fletcher was let go. So we'll see if that comes to be, but there is more talk about that still being something that's kind of considered on the table being discussed. Now, on to the bigger names here, and Debrincat and Dubois. Words on both of them that they would like to play somewhere different than what they are. Lots of chatter, especially on Sen's Twitter, about Alex Debrincat and what the future is going to hold for number 12 here. Obviously, Debrincat became an Ottawa Senator last year at the NHL draft. The Senators trading their first-round pick as well as a second and third rounder to the Blackhawks in exchange for the former 40-goal scorer. It looked like a pretty good deal for Ottawa. They gave up 3 picks, but only 1 first-rounder for a guy who's hit 40 goals on multiple occasions, still young, still fits with their core group of players. Obviously had 1 year left on his contract. It was going to be needing a new deal. A lot of people thought that was a slam dunk. I mean, one thing that Ottawa's not had an issue with is American-born players. They've got bulk of their team is American-born players. Look at Brady Tkachuk, Josh Norris, Jake Sanderson, just go down the list here, and they've had others that have come and gone as well. And like I know that there's obviously seems to be a variety of reasons being floated about right now about why Debrincat doesn't want to play in Ottawa. And we don't know 100% that he absolutely doesn't. There's some that say he doesn't want to play in Canada. He'd prefer to go back to the States. Of course, he just, he has a young son, young family. Maybe they prefer to play closer to home. Okay, maybe that's a reason. I get that. There's some that say that Debrincat doesn't feel like he fits well with the team. And, that to me doesn't really mesh well. If you look at his usage last year, he was, certainly given plenty of opportunity, always in a top 6 role, often getting one of the highest amounts on the power play. I don't know that really well makes sense. There's some that say that he doesn't like the coach and doesn't love the playing style of DJ Smith. Okay, I kind of get that, but to me, it's not a great excuse. Players have to understand if they sign a long-term deal, they're most likely going to have 2 or 3 coaches. That's just the way things go on the business side of hockey, that coaches tend to have a lifespan of, 3-4 years tops. So, you're likely going to outlast this coach in your present situation. So I can understand how the playing style might not best fit him. Obviously, his numbers dipped last year, but you could also contribute that to the fact that he's with a new team, new line mates. Things do take time to kind of get adjusted. And the other thing, too, is that his centerman was supposed to be Josh Norris, and Norris got hurt. Was it the 4th or 5th game of the season? So he ended up playing with a rookie centerman in Shane Pinto a bulk of the year, which is not really anybody's fault. And I think, considering all things, it did pretty well. But, I don't know that that's really fair or makes complete sense either. So it's just, what is the real reason? And at the end of the day, do we even really need to know the main reason? We do know that Debrincat and his agent have apparently given GM Pierre Dorion a list of preferred destinations that he would be, more willing to go to. Now, there's also talk that he's, wanting to know more about the ownership. Of course, we know that the sale of the team has been dragging on for some time. We still don't know who the new owners are going to be. It's believed, and we'll say, well, believe it when I hear it, because it's been dragging on so long. We haven't really had any updates in a number of days now that it's going to be wrapped up this month for sure, before the Board of Governors meeting on June 22nd. The news could really break at any time. It's really hard to say, but it's believed that the owners, they bidding people trying to become owners are even really frustrated and are kind of getting fatigued, and you have to wonder if even one or more of them might be like trying to bail in the situation because they're so frustrated. So I do understand Debrincat's, potential stance on that, but at the same time, you got to know that all these bidders are all deep pocket, groups. Your team is going to be in good hands no matter what. They've already confirmed they're going to be a cap team trying to win. I'm just not really sure what more you want. Obviously, this seems like to me that he just, for whatever reason, does not want to be there. He does not seem to think that it's best for him. At the end of the day, he has every right to say and make that choice and decision. We don't have to understand it as fans. We don't. But where could he go? I mean, listening to NHL reporters and insiders go, I would have to say that looking at Twitter and social media and all these mock trades, for one, if he's not going to play in Ottawa, to be honest, I don't think he's going to play anywhere in Canada. I believe is listening to some connected reporters like Friedman and Jeff Merrick that more likely look to the Central Division or even a rival like Detroit. He is a Michigan boy, so he might want to play closer to home. I don't know if the Red Wings would want to make that work, but Detroit's probably the only team, I would say, in their division that would be a possibility. You look to the Central, a team like St. Louis makes a lot of sense. Obviously, we know they're looking for some scoring forwards to kind of retool. I don't know what kind of return there could be, but they do have 3 first-round picks. There could be something there that the Sens could work out. Obviously, looking at other teams too, and maybe Winnipeg, I know it's Canadian. I doubt he'd want to go there, to be honest, but I can't say that with certainty. That's just my gut feeling after what we've heard. But obviously the Winnipeg Jets have a ton of assets for sale that are looking for trade, and they could swap, whether it be, something either involving Connor Hellebuck or Mark Scheifele, Dubois, all those guys. I don't see them necessarily. I don't see a Debrincat for Dubois trade happening, but you never know. At the end of the day, if they find the situation where, we each have a player on that could be a UFA in 1 year that are unhappy, let's swap them and see what happens in the year. That's happened before. That's what happened with Laine and Dubois. So you never know. I wouldn't rule that out. But Central Division teams and obviously American teams seem to be the preference here where he could end up. We'll see. I know it's been mentioned as well that teams like Nashville like a UC Saros trade, like that's something that I think a lot of Sens fans would be down for. If you're going to have to trade this guy, you want good value back. There's been word that UC Saros could be available for the right deal. We know Barry Trotz and the new GM in there in Nashville wants to make the team more offensive and add some scoring. And there's been talk that they might be willing to move Saros, so that might be something to consider. Obviously, a team like Vegas is on most players' destination lists. I don't know how they could possibly make that work cap-wise, so I don't see that happening. But, anyways, like there's lots of interest for sure. We'll have to see. I would suspect by the draft we're going to know, and we're likely going to, I think things are trending right now towards a trade. We'll see. But, I mean, the thing is that a lot of people, like even Bruce Garriock, who's well connected to the Senators, keep saying to look at for some of the teams that have first-round picks. I'm like, why would you want future-based assets if you're trading Debrincat? You brought him in to try to win now. And obviously injuries and goaltending let you down last year, so you didn't get in the playoffs. But really, like you're probably 1 to 2 pieces from adding or swapping him out from getting where you want to be. Why would you want futures? So that doesn't make sense to me, unless you get those futures to flip to another team for a replacement. I mean, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But certainly lots of talk that Debrincat likely not going to be back, and we'll see what Dorian can do. But right now, a lot of his moves last offseason, which a lot of people refer to as the summer of Pierre, not really working out. The goaltending deal for Talbot didn't work out. The Joseph extension, not looking good right now. The Debrincat trade, not looking great for the time being. But if he can flip Debrincat for the right pieces, then it'll be okay, right? But it's still a lot of things that were looking really good last year suddenly have some question marks on them today. Now, Pierre-Luc Dubois, he apparently will not sign anything in Winnipeg and absolutely wants a trade. He's not even willing to sign a 1-year contract and take his qualifying offer and get himself to UFA status in Winnipeg, which that to me was surprising. Am I surprised he wants a trade? No, it's been rumored for like a year. But the fact that he won't even take his 1-year QO and play it out to get to UFA status, that's surprising. Now, I don't think Kevin Cheveldayoff, the GM of the Jets, was going to let that happen anyway. But at the same time, the fact that he's that forceful, mildly surprising for me. So clearly his agent and Dubois have ambitions to get him to Montreal. There's no doubt. Montreal, by far on the top of his list for preferred destinations. But as Elliotte Friedman said, and I've said before too, like Montreal knows he wants to go there. If they want him, they're not going to overpay. They're not going to give Winnipeg that great of a package. It's just that simple. He's a young asset to them. He's still, in his mid-20s. That could be a great piece. They'd love to get a good return. They traded Patrick Laine for him. And now if they get a poor return, it's going to really set them back. But at the end of the day, they don't have any leverage. The team making the deal, if it's Montreal, knows he wants to be there. They're like, listen, we'll just wait. If you don't want to take our offer, we'll sign him next year. Not that big a deal. We know we're rebuilding. We're not going to be in a rush here. It's just that simple. Now, Jeff Merrick also mentions a few teams like the Rangers or Minnesota, which are interesting teams. And he mentions that he thinks Dubois would be amenable to playing at, even if it's short term. Minnesota would be very interesting, but they have a very complex, very tight cap situation due to the Suter and Parise buyouts really kicking into high gear this coming season. So I don't know whether Minnesota could make that work. Obviously not really preferred for Winnipeg to deal with them if they could help it, given the fact that they're such a tight division rival. The Rangers would be interesting. I think they'd be open to that. I mean, they do have some interesting assets there in New York that would certainly offer Winnipeg some interesting choices in a trade. That's for sure. But how much is the Rangers really going to offer if they can only sign him for 1 year? That to me is, again, it's unfortunate for Winnipeg from that perspective. But if the Rangers are going to make that trade, then it tells us they're probably letting some other assets go. You're looking at probably maybe Kane and Tarasenko don't come back. I don't know, right? Obviously, they made a lot of deadline moves and some interesting choices there on the Big Apple. So we'll have to see where this goes. But Dubois does not want to be a Jet, refuses to sign even a 1-year deal. A trade is likely coming. Elliotte Friedman says he feels that Cheveldayoff probably should get things started with a Connor Hellebuyck deal because he has the most value out of everybody that they're possibly going to be trading this offseason. And it was an interesting list of top goalies on the market this year. Might want to get in front of that and maybe start things off with a Hellebuyck deal. But this one might have to come to the front burner here. If, this Hellebuyck, they definitely have a little bit more time. But the Jets are going to be a very, very, very interesting team here. to watch. Like I said, it's not just Dubois, it's not just Hellebuyck. You got Wheeler, you got Scheifele, maybe a defenseman or two, maybe a Brendan Dillon, for example, maybe an Nate Schmidt, Dylan DeMello. I think they're willing to look at a lot of these different options. I think they're going to continue to build around guys like Ehlers and Connor. I don't see them being on the move. You could get some young talent like a Cole Perfetti, Chaz Lucius, who they're hoping will be bigger pieces for them down the road as well. And we'll see what happens. But Debrincat and Dubois want trades. Where are they going to go? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and we'll talk about it further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.